I remember that because the sky had that kind of dull gray color she used to say, looked like the inside of a teacup. She always had poetic names for things, made life seem like a novel. A soft woman, quiet but not shy, and the kind of person who could talk someone down from rage with just a look. I loved her. And I don't say that like a cliché. I mean, I loved her for 42 years. And I believed every moment of it was built on something real. We raised 3 kids, 2 boys and a girl. Michael, Jonah, and our sweet Emily. I was a mechanic, not some big-time businessman, but I worked my hands raw for them. And her name was Ellen. She gave them the softness I couldn't. We were a team, or so I thought. When Ellen died, the grief didn't come fast. It settled in like a fog that took its time. And in that stillness, when everyone else moved on, I found myself looking for something to hold on to. That's when I took the DNA test. Just for the hell of it. One of those stupid kits they advertise on TV. Discover your heritage, they say, like it's all just fun and games. I wasn't trying to discover anything. I knew where I came from. Irish-German roots. Pennsylvania born and raised. I just wanted something to do with my hands, other than cry. A few weeks later, I got the results. And the numbers. They didn't make sense. I called the company, told them there had to be a mistake. But no, they were real clear. Mr. Hollis, we cross-validated the sample. There's no biological match to Emily Hollis listed under your account. I hung up without saying a word. I remember just sitting there in the garage, oil on my hands, that paper shaking in my fingers. Emily wasn't my daughter, not biologically, and I hadn't known. Not once in all her 34 years had I doubted it. She had my eyes, for God's sake, or maybe I just thought she did. I didn't know what to do with it. What do you even do with something like that? So I waited. I waited until Thanksgiving, because I wanted to look them all in the eyes. My sons, my daughter, hell, even the grandkids. We were all around the table. Emily was passing out the pumpkin pie like everything was fine, like she was mine. I said it quiet. Real quiet. I took one of those DNA tests. Thought it'd be fun. Michael's fork froze. Jonah blinked once. Emily smiled and said, "Oh yeah? What'd it say?" I didn't smile back. Said, "You're not mine." The silence that followed. It wasn't confusion. It wasn't shock. It was the silence of people who'd already known. And that's when I realized it wasn't just my wife who kept the secret. It was all of them. You tell me what a man's supposed to do after that. Emily dropped the pie slicer. Not out of shock, more like she'd been waiting for that moment. And it landed sooner than she hoped. Jonah stood up fast, knocked his chair over. Michael rubbed the bridge of his nose like I'd given him a headache. No one spoke. Not one damn word of denial. "No, Dad, that's crazy," or "that can't be right." Just silence, thicker than gravy on that uneaten plate. I said, "How long have you known?" No answer. I turned to Emily. "I changed your diapers. I taught you how to ride a bike. Fixed your first flat tire. Walked you down the aisle. And none of that was enough to deserve the truth?" She looked like she wanted to cry, but didn't. Just stared at her lap like a school kid who got caught cheating. And Michael, my eldest, the so-called leader among them, finally spoke. "Dad, it doesn't change anything, doesn't it?" I barked, louder than I meant. "Then why the hell didn't anyone tell me?" He glanced at Jonah. Jonah looked down, pretending his mashed potatoes were something worth studying. Emily finally found her voice. "Mom made us promise. She said it would crush you." "She was right," I said, and damn if my voice didn't crack a little. "She just didn't live long enough to see it happen." Jonah mumbled, "We were just kids, Dad. We didn't even know until high school." "She sat us down one night, told us there'd been a mistake," I said, stunned. "That's what she called it." "She didn't mean it like that," Emily cut in, all of a sudden desperate to put the fire out. "She was scared. She didn't want to lose you. You were the only father I've ever known, the only one I've ever loved." That's a hell of a thing to say to a man after lying to his face for decades. Michael got defensive, that corporate tone he picked up over the years. "It was Mom's decision. She asked us not to tell you, and we honored that." "She was our mother, and I wasn't your father?" I snapped. "You are," Emily said, standing now, hands trembling. DNA doesn't erase the memories, the years, the love. It sure as hell casts a shadow on them, I said, pushing my chair back. I didn't want to cry in front of them. Not in that house I'd paid for. Not at that table I built with my own 2 hands. I grabbed my coat from the rack. Nobody followed. Not a word as I stepped out into the cold night. I walked the block twice, 3 times. My legs were shaking, not from the cold but from the weight of it all. The betrayal, the collusion, the knowing smiles and family photos that suddenly felt like counterfeit bills. I thought about Ellen, about how she kissed me every morning like everything was pure, about how I held her while she died, whispering that I'd take care of the kids, her kids. I kept my promise, and she broke hers. By the time I got back to the house, everyone had gone. Just like that. Left the dishes, the food, the silence. It was like Thanksgiving had been scrubbed out with bleach. I sat down in the dark kitchen, staring at the empty seat across from me. Ellen's seat, and I said it out loud to no one. I don't even know who you were. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the garage mostly. In the old recliner next to the workbench, surrounded by the smell of motor oil and rust. The walls were lined with every socket wrench and ratchet I'd ever bought. Tools I'd handed down to my boys, showed them how to use, only to watch them forget. That was the thing about tools. You pass them down hoping they'll remember where they came from. But memories, turns out, don't mean loyalty. Not in this family. I kept turning it over in my mind. The way Michael didn't even flinch. Jonah acting like I was the one who'd hurt him. And Emily. I couldn't even say her name without my chest tightening. She cried, sure, but not from shame. It was the kind of crying you do when your lies are finally out in the open and you don't know how to walk around without them anymore. By morning, I made up my mind. I called a friend of mine, Lester, a retired family lawyer I used to fish with back in the day. Lester, I said, I need you to help me figure out how deep this hole goes. He didn't ask questions, just told me to come by. I brought every document I had, birth certificates, wills, Ellen's medical records, even old journals. Lester sifted through them, slow, deliberate, like he was searching for cracks in a wall. After about an hour, he looked up at me, his expression a mix of disbelief and concern. You want the legal or the personal truth? He asked. Both. Well, he said, Emily was legally adopted, quietly. It looks like Ellen filed papers under her maiden name. There's a record here, sealed but still visible, dated 2 months after Emily was born. I blinked. You're telling me she adopted Emily, without telling me? He nodded. Means you never signed those papers. You were married at the time, so legally that's odd. Very odd. It was like the air got thinner in the room. So, who's the father? He shrugged. Could be someone she knew before you, someone she didn't want you to know about. Or maybe someone you did know. That landed like a slap. Someone I knew. God help me. My mind went back over every face from those days. Friends, coworker, neighbors. I thought about the way Ellen would sometimes change the subject if I brought up certain people. The way she once cried at a high school reunion and wouldn't tell me why. And that's when it hit me, Ralph Godfrey. He'd been Ellen's boss for years at the bank. A smug, polished bastard who always talked down to me like I was just some grease monkey. I remember once, I must have been 28. He showed up at our 4th of July cookout, uninvited, bringing some fancy wine nobody asked for. Ellen acted strange around him, nervous but polite. I asked her about it, and she said I was imagining things. I wasn't. I never saw it back then, because I didn't want to. I turned to Lester. Can you find out if Ralph had any connection to Emily? Financial, legal, whatever? He nodded. It'll take a few days. You sure you want to go down this road? I didn't answer right away. Just looked down at my hands. These same damn hands that fixed their cars, paid their tuition, changed their diapers. These hands that held a woman I loved, as she whispered lies into my ears while I kissed her goodnight. Then I looked Lester in the eye. I've lived my whole life thinking I was a father to 3 kids, I said. Now I find out I was just the stand-in for someone else's mistake. I need to know who made me the fool. Lester called 3 days later, said, You better sit down. I already was. He'd found bank records, old ones. tucked behind a maze of shell accounts and custodial transfers. Turns out Ralph Godfrey had been depositing money into an education fund, a fund that had only one beneficiary, Emily. It wasn't much, not enough to scream secret child support, but it was consistent. Once a year, like clockwork, until the year Emily graduated college. Quiet money, careful money. Lester even pulled old employment records. Ralph had left the bank suddenly, about a year after Emily was born. No scandal, just gone. Ellen had stayed, said it was just bad timing. But now it felt like he ran to save face, or because she told him to disappear. I thanked Lester and hung up, just sat there for a long while, staring at my old pickup in the driveway. I'd driven that truck to the hospital when Ellen went into labor with Emily. I remembered holding her hand. I remembered thinking, this is the day I become a father again. But I hadn't. Not really. Not in the way I believed. That night, I called Emily, asked her to come over, just her. No Michael, no Jonah, no husbands, no kids. She showed up wearing that blue coat Ellen bought her years ago. The one I always said brought out her eyes. She sat at the kitchen table, like it was any other visit. Smiled small, like she wanted to believe we could still be okay. But she knew. Something in her posture told me she knew. The storm had changed. I slid the papers across the table. She looked down. Read them. No questions. No tears. After a while, I asked her flat out, "Is Ralph Godfrey your biological father?" She didn't say yes. She just looked up at me, eyes glistening, and said, "He's never been my father." That should have meant something, but it didn't. "You let me believe a lie," I said. "You lived under my roof, called me Dad, and never once gave me the truth." Her voice was soft. "You were the truth." I shook my head. "Don't say that. Don't you dare say that. You were grown, Emily. You had every chance to come clean." She looked down, ashamed. I was afraid. "Of what?" I snapped. "That you'd stop loving me." I leaned back in my chair, let out a slow breath that felt like it had been stuck in my chest for years. "You were the one thing I had left, Emily. After your mother passed, I thought at least you were mine. Now I don't know who I am in this family." She reached for my hand. I didn't pull away, but I didn't hold on either. "I love you," she whispered. "I raised you," I said, "but I don't know if I can ever forgive you." Her face broke then, and the tears finally came. But I didn't comfort her. For the first time in my life, I didn't know how. The next few weeks were quiet. Too quiet. Michael and Jonah didn't call. Not once. Maybe they figured it was better to let things cool down. Or maybe they were just glad someone else was holding the shame for a while. Either way, their silence said more than any apology ever could. Emily tried. She brought meals by, left them on the porch, sent messages that started with, "Just checking in," and ended with nothing real. I didn't respond, couldn't. Every time I heard her voice on the answering machine, it was like listening to an actor playing my daughter, saying all the right words with none of the weight. But the thing that gnawed at me most was Ellen. She died before I could ask her, before I could look her in the eye and say, "Why? Why lie to me? Why build a life on something so fragile?" Did she ever plan to tell me? Or was she going to take it to the grave like a coward? I needed answers. Dead or not, I needed to face her. So I went up to the attic. That place hadn't been touched since Ellen passed. Smelled like dust and old cedar. Her things were still in boxes, journals, scrapbooks, knickknacks she swore she'd organize one day. I sat there on the floor, surrounded by the echoes of our life. And I opened her journals. It felt wrong, like reading someone's soul without permission. But I had no choice. She'd stolen my truth. I had a right to hers. The entries were mostly benign. Recipes, garden notes, memories of the kids. But in one notebook, dated 2 months after Emily's birth, I found what I'd been looking for. Ralph came to the hospital. He saw her. I begged him to leave and never come back. I told him it was too late, that I had made my choice. He cried. I didn't. I held Emily in my arms and knew she belonged to Jim. Not by blood, but by heart. I dropped the book, sat there for a long while, the words ringing in my head like bells in a church that long since stopped holding service. She chose me. She lied, but she chose me. And that made it worse. Because now I couldn't hate her cleanly. I couldn't cast her off like some villain in a story. She'd believed what she was doing was right. That love was enough. That a secret buried deep enough wouldn't rot. But it had. And I was the one breathing in the stench. That night, I couldn't stay in that house. Not another second. I drove, aimlessly. Ended up in front of Michael's big glass-windowed suburban palace, where everything looks like a damn magazine ad. I didn't knock. Just sat in the truck, lights off, watching the shadows move through the living room. He came out after a while, stood at the top of the driveway, like he'd been expecting this. I got out, walked up slow, didn't say a word. "You're not going to hit me, are you?" he said, half joking. I stared at him. "You let me believe a lie for 30 years. His jaw clenched. "It wasn't my lie to tell. It became yours when you kept it." He looked away. "You think I didn't struggle with it? That I didn't hate Mom for what she did?" "No, Michael," I said. "I think you made peace with it because it was easier than doing the right thing." Silence again. That damned silence. I looked at him long and hard. "You and Jonah, you're out of the will. Effective immediately." He blinked, caught off guard. "Dad, come on. I'm not doing it to punish you. I'm doing it because I don't trust you." "And Emily?" he asked. I didn't answer. Because I didn't know yet. The next morning, I called my banker. Her name's Marie, sharp as a tack, and not the kind to blink at family drama. Probably because she's seen worse. She didn't ask questions when I told her to start drawing up a new will. Just said, "You want the standard family trust or something more protective?" "Protective," I said. She nodded. "From them?" "From everyone." We spent 2 hours going over every account, every asset, every clause. I made it clear, my money wouldn't go to anyone who lied to me. No houses, no stocks, no damn heirlooms. If they wanted my forgiveness, they'd have to earn it the hard way, without a dollar in the balance. I left Emily's name on the trust. Not because I forgave her, but because somewhere in me, I still saw the little girl who used to fall asleep in my arms after nightmares. The kid who waited in the garage for me to come home, holding a toy wrench like she could fix the world. But I left conditions. The trust stated she'd only inherit if she met one requirement, a full, recorded conversation face to face where she told the truth about everything. No filters, no omissions, and it would be archived. Not for legal reasons, for legacy. If I had to leave this world broken, then I wanted the pieces laid bare for whoever came next. Marie asked, "You think she'll go through with it?" I didn't answer. I just signed the papers. Later that day, Emily showed up at the house again. She must have seen the lights on. I didn't ask her to come, but she knocked gently, like she was trying not to wake something that might bite. "I heard about the will," she said. No anger in her voice. Just a wait. I nodded. "I'm not sorry." She stepped inside, slow, sat down in the same chair her mother used to. "What do you want from me?" "Truth," I said. "No more poetry. No more calling love a shield for betrayal." She looked me dead in the eye, and then she started talking. She told me about the day her mother sat them all down. Told them the truth in hushed tones like it was a ghost story. Told them never to tell me. That I wouldn't handle it. That I might leave. "She was scared of losing you," Emily said. "She already had me," I snapped. "She just didn't trust I'd stay if I knew who she really was." "And would you have?" Emily asked, quiet. I merely asked, quiet. "Would you have stayed if she told you 20, 30 years ago?" That question landed hard. I didn't know. Maybe I would have raged. Maybe I would have packed my bags and driven off into the night, like some hurt cowboy. Or maybe I would have stayed and lived with the wound like a splinter I couldn't dig out. "I don't know," I said, "but at least the choice would have been mine." She nodded, tears welling. "She loved you, Dad. I know that doesn't fix it, but it's the truth." "Is he alive?" I asked. "Ralph." She hesitated. "He died 4 years ago," she said. "Lung cancer. I never met him. He wrote me a letter once, but I never opened it." I stared at her. "Why not?" "Because he wasn't you." That shook something loose in me. Not forgiveness, but maybe the first step toward it. We sat there for a long while. No shouting, no apologies, just the truth, finally breathing in the open air. Before she left, I said one last thing. I'm not the man I was before this, and I'll never be him again. But if you want something real between us, from here on out, no more secrets, no more lies. She nodded. I can live with that. Time will tell if she meant it. But for the first time in a long while, I believed she might. The first person to break the silence after that was Jonah. He showed up unannounced, just like his sister, pulled into the driveway in that overpriced SUV he always said he hated, wearing a face that looked older than mine. I watched him from the porch. He got out slow, hands buried deep in his pockets like he was carrying something heavy. Regret, maybe, or just the weight of knowing he'd been a coward. I guess I'm the last one, he said. I nodded. You usually were. He chuckled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Mind if I come in? I didn't answer, just turned and walked back inside. He followed. He looked around the kitchen like it was sacred ground he'd been banned from. Eyes landed on the table, the old clock, the dent in the drywall. From when Michael threw a baseball too hard in '92. You changed the will, he said. I changed a lot. He nodded. I figured you would. Why are you really here, Jonah? He didn't answer at first, just leaned against the counter, rubbed his jaw. Because I messed up, he finally said. We all did. But me, I stood by. I knew about Emily. I knew what Mom did. And I let it happen. I didn't say a word, not once. That's right, I said. You watched it all happen, year after year, and you let me sit at every dinner table with a lie between us. I thought I was protecting you. No, son. You were protecting your comfort. That landed. He swallowed hard, looked down at the floor. I didn't want to lose the version of you I had in my head, he said. Strong, steady, never shaken. I was scared if the truth came out, it'd break you. It did, I said flatly, but I'm still standing, which is more than I can say for you boys. He didn't argue, just nodded. I don't want the money, he said. I came here to say I was wrong, not for your forgiveness, just so you'd hear it out loud. I studied him. It's a strange thing, watching your own son look like a man for the first time. Not because he got older, but because he finally stopped pretending he knew better than you. I believe you, I said. He looked up, surprised. But don't mistake that for redemption, I added. You'll earn that with time, or you won't. He nodded again, slower this time, then turned to leave. Jonah, I called out before he reached the door. Do you still have Mom's letter collection? He froze. You mean the ones she kept in the cedar chest? Yeah, why? I want them back. He didn't question it, just said, I'll bring them tomorrow. And he did. That night, I sat down with those letters. Dozens of them. Some to her sister, some to herself. But one was addressed to me. Never mailed, never given. Just tucked away like a secret apology. If you ever read this, it said, it means I didn't have the courage to say it while I was alive. You were the best thing that ever happened to me. I made mistakes, unforgivable ones. But I never stopped loving you, and I never stopped being afraid that if you knew the truth, you'd stop loving me. I hope you don't, but if you do, I understand. I read that letter twice, then I burned it, because some things deserve to stay buried with the dead. But not the truth. The truth deserved air, and now it had it. A week later, Michael called. Not a text, not an email, a real call. I let it ring 4 times before picking up. Let him wonder if I'd bother. Dad, he said, voice tighter than usual. I heard you talk to Jonah and Emily. I did. He paused, then said, You planning on calling me next? No, I said, but you're welcome to come by. He didn't say anything for a second, then muttered, I'll be there tomorrow. He showed up right at noon the next day, always punctual, even when he's walking into judgment. Wore a dress shirt like he was headed to a damn board meeting. I stayed in my flannel. I wanted him to feel out of place. We sat across from each other in the living room. No coffee, no offers of food, just air between us, tense and heavy. You've always been the leader, I said, the one they look to. So tell me, Michael, what kind of man teaches his siblings to lie to their father? He flinched at that. I didn't teach them to lie. I taught them to protect the family. No, I said. You taught them to protect your version of it. He didn't argue, just sat there, jaw clenched. I was angry, he finally said. At Mom, mostly, for what she did, for making us complicit. But I justified it. Told myself you were happier not knowing. And were you right? He looked at me, and I saw something shift. A crack in that corporate armor. No, he said. I wasn't. We sat there in silence again. Like that might make up for years of dishonesty. Like two men trying to rewind time by sitting still. You think I raised you wrong? I asked suddenly. His head snapped up. No, never. Then where did I go wrong? You didn't, he said. We did. I watched him for a long moment, then nodded. Good, I said. Because if I believed otherwise, I might have died thinking my whole life was a waste. He swallowed hard. I read Mom's letter, I added. Michael looked down. I'm not interested in burying her twice, I said. But I'll tell you this. She robbed me of something, and you all helped her do it. I know, he whispered. I changed the will, I said. You and Jonah, nothing, not a dime. He nodded slowly. I expected that. But if you want to earn something from me, not money, not land, but maybe a place in what's left of this family, then you're going to have to start over, from zero. He looked at me, eyes wet but defiant. Then I will. I stood. Good, now leave. I need some air. He didn't argue, just got up and walked out, slower than usual. Like the weight had finally found his shoulders. When he left, I didn't sit back down. I went to the shed, pulled out my old journal, the one I used when times were hard, and words were cheaper than therapy. I flipped to the last page, and I wrote, They all lied, but they're trying now. I don't know what that's worth yet, but I'll keep watching, keep waiting. I've been a father my whole life. Maybe now I get to be a man, just for myself. I closed the book, and for the first time since Ellen died, I didn't feel like a ghost in my own home. Months passed, quiet months, the kind where the house feels alive again, but only because silence fills the rooms. Emily came by occasionally, but nothing forced, nothing heavy, just small gestures, a pie, a folded letter, a casual conversation about the garden. We were trying, both of us, to see if we could exist together without the weight of lies crushing us. Then one evening, Jonah showed up, coat dripping from the late autumn rain. He had a box under his arm. I brought the letters, he said. I nodded, took the box, and we sat at the kitchen table. We didn't speak much at first, just shuffled through the old pages, letters from Ellen to friends, to her own mother, to us, all the confessions. She'd tucked away, some sweet, some angry, some hopeless. It felt like I was peeling back the layers of a life I thought I knew. Finally, he looked at me. She was afraid, he said softly, of losing you. She made choices she thought were right. I slammed a letter down. She made choices that nearly destroyed us, that left me questioning every moment with Emily. Every laugh, every smile, tainted because it wasn't real. Jonah flinched. She loved you, Dad. Even in her mistakes, you know that. I stared at him. Doesn't make it hurt any less. He nodded. I know. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was acknowledgement. And for the first time in decades, I felt like someone in this family understood the depth of the wound. Emily came by later that week. She stayed longer this time. We didn't talk about DNA, Ralph, or the secrets. We talked about Ellen instead. Shared stories, laughed quietly, cried quietly. For the first time I realized that maybe love isn't always about truth. Sometimes it's about presence, about choosing to be there, even when the world conspires to make everything complicated. That night after she left, I sat by the fire and let the warmth sink in. The house didn't feel like a mausoleum anymore. It felt lived in. Not because of the people, but because of the acknowledgement that life goes on, even after betrayal, even after loss. I pulled out my journal again and wrote, The lies are out. The betrayals have been named. I am not whole, but I am not broken. The family I thought I had is fractured. Yes, but perhaps, slowly, we can rebuild on something stronger. Something truthful. I closed it, and for the first time since Ellen died, I slept without the ghost of secrets pressing on my chest. Spring came slow that year. I noticed it first in the garden. Tulips pushing through frozen earth, stubborn as ever. Emily came over one afternoon, gloves on, sleeves rolled, helping me prune the rose bushes. We didn't talk much, just worked side by side, but it felt normal, comfortable in a way I hadn't expected. Jonah stopped by too, sometimes quietly helping me with the siding on the garage, or the leaky faucet in the kitchen. He didn't ask for forgiveness, and I didn't offer it. We worked in silence, building something practical, tangible, brick by brick, wrench by wrench. Then, one evening, Michael came back, not to argue, not to plead, just to sit with me on the porch, looking at the horizon as the sun dipped behind the hills. "I've been thinking," he said finally, "about Mom, about everything." "And?" I asked, expecting a half-hearted apology. "I can't undo what we did, but I want to try to make things right. Not with money, not with words, with action." I watched him for a long moment, then nodded. "Good. Actions speak louder than lies ever did." We sat there together, 3 grown children's shadows stretching long into the grass, a quiet acknowledgement between us. For the first time, the past felt like it wasn't trying to strangle the present. Emily came later that night, and for a fleeting moment, all of us, Michael, Jonah, Emily, and I were in the same room. No fights, no accusations, just quiet. Fragile, imperfect, but real. I realized then that life doesn't always hand you closure neatly wrapped. Sometimes it gives you fragments, broken pieces, and the choice to put them together or leave them scattered. I pulled out my journal and wrote one last line. The family I thought I had was a mirage. The family I have now is a work in progress. I am older, yes, but I am still standing, still watching, still learning, and maybe, finally, still loving. I closed it and looked out the window at the night sky. Stars blinking slowly, patiently. And I knew, despite every lie, every betrayal, every hurt, I had survived, I had endured, and in that endurance, I found a strange kind of peace. Thank you for following this journey. Even in broken families, even in buried truths, there's a way to reclaim life, and perhaps even love.